Unfortunately, becoming a Bible scholar carries with it as many disadvantages as becoming an Egyptologist. Today, we explore why you might not want to become a Bible scholar on this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. This is the much-delayed sequel to a video we did on 6 reasons not to become an Egyptologist that we did back in September 2020, right between Unicorns in the Bible and the Money of Ancient Egypt. It's sad to say that being a Bible scholar often carries more disadvantages than advantages, and we are going to discuss those today on this episode. Luke 14:28 says that a wise man considers the cost before building a tower, and likewise, a student should consider the cost before becoming a Bible scholar. And these are 6 reasons why you might want to reconsider that life choice. Number 1. Becoming a Bible scholar is not unlike winning the lottery. There are a lot of biblical studies programs in the world. Over 1,000 programs that award advanced degrees. They are churning out thousands of qualified graduates every year. That means there is a lot of competition for the handful of open positions available annually. The vast majority of graduates will not be able to find work as a Bible scholar. Most people who earn a PhD in biblical studies will end up having to find work in another field. Many will end up working as private school teachers or in private industry. Because of the competition for academic posts is so fierce, it is not dissimilar to a high school football player making it to the NFL. A handful will become part-time independent researchers. Nevertheless, if you want to be a Bible scholar, it would probably be best to also have a plan B, just in case things don't work out. Number 2. It's not that competitive to get a PhD in biblical studies, but the quality of training is wildly inconsistent. Because there are so many programs that teach biblical studies, with divergent methods of training, the quality of programs can be all over the map. I've encountered biblical studies PhDs that have received excellent training. Others, however, are close to incompetent. Part of this is that accreditation standards are not consistent. Some programs rigorously adhere to high standards of educational delivery. Other programs are completely unaccredited, have no quality standards at all, are fad-driven, or are so lax that everything is left up to the discretion of the instructors. If you want more information about academic accreditation, please see the card above. However, I've heard of some unaccredited Bible colleges, although licensed by local state authorities to grant terminal degrees, whose educational, quote, training have involved little more than a Zoom conference where the instructor and student do nothing more than chew the fat. Even some schools that sound good on the surface, like Harvard Divinity School, while having the cachet of the Harvard name, are so devoid of external oversight that they've lost credibility in the field. Number 3. Most of the time, you'll have to pay your own way through a biblical studies PhD. Bible colleges don't have deep pockets. If you want to earn a PhD in biblical studies, you have to pay for it yourself. In the majority of academic programs, funding is provided for the PhD student to complete their degrees because the program can last for over a decade. So most PhD programs provide financial assistance to help you get through so that you are not saddled with a decade or more of student debt. Not so with PhDs that focus on subjects dealing with the Bible. Most biblical studies PhDs come with no funding at all. You have to pay your own way through. So, during your PhD program, it is unlikely that you will be earning income and building up a career. And in the years when most people are building their careers to the point of financial stability, you will likely be stuck doing a dead-end job to pay your way through. And when you have to resort to Plan B, you will be living hand-to-mouth for the rest of your natural life. Number 4. Should you fail to become a teacher within a seminary or biblical studies department, holding a PhD or THD in a biblical subject can negatively impact your job prospects. While no one likes to hear it, your Plan A ideas of becoming a tenured professor in the field of teaching the Bible is probably not going to pan out. Now you have to resort to your Plan B. And when you do, you might have to look for work in private industry. Then you will discover that those employers are not going to like the fact that you have a PhD or THD in biblical studies. Having a degree in biblical studies is going to scare employers in the private sector. These degrees are a liability when it comes to job hunting, and most people will eventually omit them from their resumes. Number 5. Biblical studies departments are very political, risk-adverse, and despise people who make waves or disrupt the tranquility of the community. I used to tell people the 3 rules for getting through grad school. Know the system, jump through the hoops, and don't make waves. Unfortunately, when you become part of the academy, the first 2 drop off, and the third becomes paramount. It's one thing to be a grad student, but working in the academy is an entirely different game that demands a different skill set. Academic departments demand a nebulous requirement euphemistically called collegiality. Collegiality is the ability to fit in. And what we mean by fitting in is that you will work diligently in the department without inviting controversy, without drawing attention to yourself, and without making any waves that could disturb the rest of the faculty. If you think, as a Bible scholar, that you will be defending the historic Christian faith, think again. If you take any stand at all for the historic Christian faith, whether your institution believes in it or not, you will be thrown under the bus at a moment's notice and driven out because you have disturbed the peace and tranquility of the community. The whole field of biblical studies is rotting from the inside, and it's best to know this before getting into it. Number 6. Debauchery and sin on a level that would make Caligula blush. Let's start with the peccadillos. Many Bible colleges try to clamp down on any opportunity to outwardly sin, but as an unintended consequence, facilitate the flourishing of sins of character. I know of several colleges that strictly control the dress codes, conduct, and impose curfews among students and staff in a way that makes legalism the norm. But that is not the only way sin can proliferate among Bible college staff. If I could characterize much of the spirit of the male conservative Christian academy, yes, I'm talking to you men, it would be selfishness and cowardice. These people take their self-interest and the "don't make waves" theme to its most ridiculous extreme. And they will be the first to throw you under the bus when controversy appears. Conversely, and I hate to say this, but envy, pride, and bitterness have been the maledictions that have plagued many of the female faculty I have encountered in the Christian Academy. Some of the foulest, meanest, and resentful professors have been those who have advanced through the academic ranks and have blamed the opposite gender for holding them down, despite making it to the top faster than their male counterparts. Yeah, no reflection there. Now that's just the peccadillos. Then there are the big sins. There was a very famous and public case of a Bible college in Sydney, Australia, where the president of the college used his position to recruit young men, and often underage men, to have sex with. The debauchery of this cannot be understated. But just to make it clear that I'm not excluding secular biblical studies departments, there are many biblical studies departments that are full of faculty who lack any sort of faith and want to make students as jaded as themselves. With a biblical studies PhD often taking close to a decade to achieve, it is not uncommon for these professors who have been doing this for decades to break down the faiths of their students who are unprepared for the challenges of theological disciplines. I still remember the admonition of one of my better professors who once cautioned me, quote, "When you go do your PhD, be careful not to go native," end quote. He was warning me of the hazard that pursuing your PhD in biblical studies might result in you losing your faith in God. Furthermore, I have heard more than one story of biblical studies departments that have engaged in the practice of wife swapping. What can one say about this? You gather secular people together to study the Bible, and somehow they all want to engage in the most depraved activities imaginable? As someone who not only studies the Bible but adheres to its teachings, I can't say I understand how this happens. But I've heard about this happening enough that I recognize that this is not a unique problem. Okay, now that covers 6 reasons why one would not want to become a Bible scholar. But there is one really, really good reason to do a PhD in a biblical discipline, and that is to pursue the pure study and research to discover new things about the most important piece of literature ever given to mankind. And then to take what you learn and share it with others. If you use your PhD to serve others, then it is definitely something worth doing. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something. And I will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.